Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Meagan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you on the show today. I would love for you to share just who you are and what your story is.
Yeah, so my name is Meagan. I am a certified mindset coach, and I work in specifically using the subconscious mind to reprogram our mind, really release those limiting beliefs that have kept us stuck for so long, and reprogram in literally whoever you want to become. So a lot of the times we have this like version of ourselves that we see, like we can see it in our mind, and yet we're not taking the actions to actually become her. Like we say, like, how come I'm not doing this? How come I'm not doing that? I'm going to try to start this habit. And then we just don't. We stay stuck. And so what I do is release the things that are keeping us stuck from taking action and then also move into the habits of becoming that version of us. It's like an effortless thing that we do. And I'm also certified in holistic nutrition as well. So I really in this like wellness space, but it's like all about ease and flow and not the rigidness. A lot of the wellness gurus that you may follow are very strict, right? It has to be this way or no way. And I really feel that there's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work when you're trying to follow, it has to be this way or it has to be that way, because who wants to live like that? So I'm really in this space of finding the way that we can all live a easier life and just allowing ourselves to be in flow and really being an awareness of what needs to go that we cannot hold on to any longer, and really just focusing on what feels good, like what brings us joy, focusing on what makes us feel our best. So that's where the wellness comes in. And really just, yeah, being the most you version of you.
I resonate with that so much. I feel like we should all be able to find that path of ease in our own lives. So, what drew you to this path that you're on now?
Yeah, so it's a funny thing, but I am a coach and I never intended to be. So I had first heard of neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, on a podcast. I think was the first time I had heard about it. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. You can just change the way your brain thinks. That's so
Mm.
neat. And so I listened to that podcast and then I read a book about it. And I listened to another podcast and I was like, I need to learn how to do this. And so I went online to search how to do NLP, and there's nothing. Like, you can just do it. So I'm like somebody who DIYs everything. And I was like, okay, if I can't do this myself, I don't really want to hire a coach right now. I'd hired a coach in the past and I was nervous to hire another one. But I was like, I'm going to coach myself. I'm just going to learn how to do this. And so I found a certification to become a coach. And I was like, I'm just going to use these techniques for myself. I literally had no plan to coach other people at this point. I have been in the wedding industry for over 10 years. So I was like, I'm going to use it to up my floral business. I'm going to be that girl in my floral business, and I'm going to use this for myself. And then I started doing the techniques and I realized how powerful they were, that I was like, I actually can't keep this to myself. People need to know how much their life will change, because it's not just that, oh, I started a new habit. My entire world shifted. My perspective on how the world worked and what I thought was possible and what I thought was true completely shifted. All the things that I grew up thinking just completely expanded. If you would have asked me about manifestation 6 years ago, I would have been like, you can't just manifest things out of thin air. And now I'm like, of course you can. Like, I've had so much money come in out of nowhere from doing nothing. Like, these big checks come in. And it's crazy. My world just completely shifted and expanded in ways I never could have imagined.
So let's touch on that because NLP, like you said, you heard about it, you were fascinated, and you went to look into it, and it wasn't really clear. So for you, could you give a definition of what does NLP look like? In a nutshell, just to give the essence for somebody who's hearing it for the first time today.
Yeah. So basically, our brains are, if you look at it this way, our brains are made of plastic, maybe, but think of it as plasticine, right? It's moldable. And so if you were to, another actually good analogy is, I always think of coding a computer. So you have your computer, which is like your brain, that's like the tangible thing. And then there's the code inside of it. And so your computer is programmed, however, your programmer programs it and it goes, okay, here you go, there's the software. And our brains are the same thing, but a computer programmer can reprogram that computer at any time and make it a different computer on the inside, right? Still the same on the outside, but on the inside, all it has to do is write a different code. And so NLP allows us to access this neuroplasticity of our mind, this bendable, breathable, shapeable thing where we can actually change the pathways in our brain so that we think differently. There's certain techniques, for example, that work. It's called submodalities, which are basically the indexing of our minds, how our brain stores information. And we can literally change those submodalities to change the way our brain stores information. And when your brain is storing information in different places, then you're automatically thinking about it differently. So you can go from liking something to disliking it. So if it was something like, oh, I want to stop drinking coffee, you could literally go from liking coffee to not liking it at all, or vice versa. You could be like, I hate kale, but I really want to start eating it. And then you could do that as well. So it's really cool how you can just literally change the way that you've thought about things your whole life.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. For me, a person who loves manifestation and knows that the subconscious plays such a huge piece in that, of us truly, like on the surface level, we're saying what we want, but we need our subconscious to be in alignment with what we're going towards, right? Because people can say that they want the thing, say that they want the kale, but if they truly hate the kale in their brain, they're not going to be going towards eating plates of kale, right? So, how do you work with
Right.
people and start helping them rewire that or recreate the programming?
Yeah, so we use a bunch of different techniques that works directly with the language of our subconscious mind. So your subconscious thinks in terms of imagery, emotions, your beliefs. So what we do is we go in and we use specific techniques. So there's a few different ones, but there's timeline coding, which is technically time technique. So it's a little bit different than NLP, but we're just going to wrap it all together. Your subconscious has a timeline, right, of your encoding. So this goes all the way from like past lives into future encoding. And so you can actually go back and find the root cause of limiting beliefs, go in and release that belief, but you're not just, it's different than working consciously, because consciously you're going to be like, okay, I choose to be worthy. I choose to feel worthy, right? No, I feel, of course I'm worthy. And you can try to convince yourself of that. But when you go back to the root cause and you understand, because you're looking over this past experience or event, that if you're going into your childhood or a past life, I mean, especially a past life, you can't recall that consciously. These are memories that are stored that you have no idea that ever happened to you consciously. So when you go back, you're not just saying, okay, I'm releasing that. You can see how that's not even really yours to keep. An emotion of this, I think often of, is shame and guilt. Shame and guilt are almost never our emotions. They're emotions that are imprinted onto us by other people. It's other people who want us to feel guilty about something, other people who make us feel shame about feeling guilty about something, right? Those don't belong to us. So for example, you can go back and say, you can release shame. So you go back to the first time you ever experienced shame, and you're in that experience and you're like, that was not my shame. I don't feel that. That was like a parent telling me that I did something wrong, or in a past life, like experiencing something that made you feel wrong or bad. And as women, we all have this, we all carry this, especially because we've been told for thousands of years that like we're not good enough and we're not worthy, we're not deserving, and we're doing everything wrong.
Yeah. It sounds so simple, right? Okay, so my wrapping my head around all this
I know
because
it's hard to wrap your brain around sometimes.
it's not that I don't believe it. I'm just fascinated by all the different rabbit holes that me and my love of manifestation is opening up, all these different conversations. I'm like, okay, yes, I see how this piece fits into the puzzle. When you started using this on yourself, before you even tried it on other people, the first, like, can you like walk us through like what an exercise might look like where you're trying to take yourself back to that beginning, that place where that seed was planted?
Yeah. So when I did my coaching program, we did actually do it with other people. So
Okay.
that's a technique. I record these. So I have a membership. So I actually record these techniques so people can listen to them without me having to be with them one-on-one. That's what I do for myself as well. There's a script and you read it, and I'll record myself reading that script with whatever belief it is that I want to release. And then it takes you through. The script is basically ask your subconscious to take you to the root cause of this event. And was it before, after, or during your birth? And people do say during sometimes. And some people have it while they'll say before, but it's like while they're in the womb still. So you can carry like traumas with you from your mother who's experienced something while she was pregnant. You just have to trust. Like, this is one of the weirdest exercises out there. Some of the other ones are more tangible, like I explained about moving things around. But this is one of those ones where you just have to trust that your subconscious has the answers. And I always say, even if it's not true, even if past lives aren't actually real, can we just trust that your subconscious is giving you the answers in a way that you need to receive them for you to release that? Even if it doesn't make sense, or if you're like, I don't really believe in that, it doesn't matter. Just go with it and trust the first thing that comes up. And a lot of times when I do this technique with clients for the first time, they're like, they have a really hard time with it. It doesn't make sense. It's telling me this. I'm like, just go with it. Push all your conscious, just get out of that. We're just going to go with the first body feels this is the right answer. And we just trust that and we go with it and we let it tell us. And then through the script, it asks you to go back to that event and you're looking over it. And then what does your subconscious want you to know about that event? And so it'll give you learnings and lessons about that event that are positive that you can take with you in the future. So now not only are you releasing that event and that root cause and the belief, you're like, that actually wasn't mine. I didn't do anything wrong. Like, it was actually other people who were wrong in that situation, but I felt guilty because someone else told me that I was bad, or whatever the situation was that you were facing in the belief. But once you can take that with you in the future, it's like, oh, okay, everything has changed now. And that's a really cool thing. And then some of the other techniques are a lot easier. There's one swish pattern technique. So this is a really good one for habits. So if you wanted to change the way you're showing up right now, let's say we'll use the kale example, right? Because like consciously, when you're manifesting, yeah, you're like, I'm going to eat more kale. I'm this person who eats really healthy. And so you go to the grocery store and you buy the kale, but then it sits in your fridge and goes bad because you don't actually ever want to put it in anything. And so with swish pattern technique, what we would do is, first of all, right now you're not even buying kale at all. So that's not even in your radar. Right now you go to the grocery store and maybe you're buying a lot of processed foods, but that's what you want to change. So we're going to think of that picture of you and we're going to bring it up in your mind. And then we're going to clear that. We're going to think of the version of you that you want to become. So in this specific example, let's say you're somebody who's very healthy. You go to the store, you buy a ton of vegetables, you're buying a ton of green vegetables, which maybe isn't your current favorite thing. And we're going to make it feel really good. How does it feel to be buying those vegetables? How does it feel to be picking that out, going home and putting them in your fridge, having this beautiful, clean fridge, and having Pinterest worthy vegetables and really calling that in? How does it feel when you eat these vegetables and when you're making meals with them, and getting very, very specific and clear? And then we adjust the submodalities. The submodalities, again, are those indexes on how we store things, and we adjust it so that it feels really real. So we'll make the picture bigger or smaller if that feels better. We'll move it from side to side. And so we store it in the place that best feels like, oh my God, I want this in our minds. And then we take the old picture and we bring it up in our minds. And we bring the new picture small in the corner. And what we do is we swish it out. So as this picture shrinks rapidly away, the new picture explodes big and bright on the screen. And you just do that a bunch of times. And eventually you can no longer pull up that old picture. It just feels like really gray or dull. And it's very hard to actually even feel what it felt to be in that spot. And now all you think about is, I can't wait to go to the grocery store and buy some green vegetables and actually make something with it. And maybe the first step is you're like, I'm going to go clean out my fridge right now and I'm going to get ready for it, because that's part of that whole vision overall.
Wow. Okay. This is really cool. This is really neat because people could use this in all areas of their life. Like you said prior, that you could use it for something that you do want just as much as something that you don't want anymore. So that is mind-blowing. I think that's really, really cool. Do you have any fun manifestation stories of your own that you've been able to achieve since putting these processes on yourself?
Yeah. So I feel like, especially in the last year, I have quantum leaped 4 different times into my next level self. And it's really at that identity level of the things that I'm believing and the ways that I'm acting, right? I think the first one that I did last year. And so what I do is I write myself custom hypnosis scripts, and it is very specific to this is exactly, you know how people script in manifestation and they write it as I'm already this. I'm so grateful for. So I'll write my script like that, and then I record it, but it's very specific to the exact habits that I have, the way I think about money, the way that I think about the value that I'm offering. Clients love to pay me. Of course, everybody wants to work with me. Whatever it is, I'm specifically manifesting in my next level. So I'll look at where I am right now and I'll be like, okay, what am I currently doing or believing that's stopping me from getting into that version? And what does that version of me do? She's the CEO of her business. So what are the activities that she's actually doing every day? Or she wants to live with more ease and she doesn't want to be at her desk for 8 hours a day. How is she actually living where she's getting work done, but then she's going out and spending the rest of the day in the garden? And so whatever it is, I figure it out, I write it down, and then I listen to that every single night. And I really notice that if I don't listen to it, whether I forget or I'm just too tired to deal with it, if I miss a few days, I start noticing I feel really overwhelmed. I feel like I'm off my path. I feel like I'm out of alignment and I don't see my next steps or whatever I need to do so clearly. And it feels like I'm really off my game. And so I really do notice the difference of listening to it and not listening to it. And I literally put it on when I go to sleep at night. It doesn't take any time out of my day. And so I really have noticed that every day when I'm listening to my hypnosis, I'm getting up and I'm manifesting that life because I'm doing it. I'm taking the action, right? And that's all manifestation truly is. You can manifest things like come out of thin air. You still have to open the check and deposit it, right? You can't just receive money and I mean, maybe you could in your bank account, but it rarely happens like that. You'll get some sort of something and you have to take action. Manifesting is, yeah, it's that taking that action and the embodiment of manifesting. And I think this was one that really kind of tricked me for a while. What do people mean when they say embodiment? When I was getting into manifestation, I was like, embody, but how? It's so simple. It actually means just doing the things that your future self is already doing. If you want to be this healthy version of you, and you know that she works out every single day, then guess what? All you have to do to manifest that version of you is work out every day. Bam, you're her. You have it, right? It's not this big mystical magical thing that everybody makes it out to be. Sometimes it's as simple as just doing the things that you want to become.
Yeah.
And when we're working at the subconscious level, creating those habits instantly and putting them on autopilot, it's like, oh, got it.
Yeah, saying that is so true. A simple thing for me, I want to do yoga every day. That's just a thing that I kept putting off. I want to do yoga every day. I just want more flexibility in my body. And I got myself to the point of it was just like I wasn't finding the space in my calendar to do yoga every single day. And it just felt like a lot of work. So I literally started by doing a couple simple yoga poses, a couple poses, 2 minutes of yoga every day. And in my head, then I was able to say, I do yoga every day. And then it grows from there. But to physically actually get myself to get into those poses and do them. And yeah, I was doing yoga every day for 2 minutes, but then that's where it grows from, right?
Yeah, because it's now your identity. Of course, I'm going to do yoga every day. Like I do yoga every day. And when you see it as somebody that you already are, there's a difference between trying to do the thing and doing it. And the difference is how you see yourself, right? Michael Jordan, you don't need to convince him to go out there and train to do basketball every single day. It's, of course, he does that every single day because it's who he is. That's part of his job. It's how he sees himself. He doesn't need the help being an athlete. But if you're telling me to go out there and train and play basketball every day, I'd be like, no, because that's not how I see myself, right? And so it's literally just being like, how do I see myself? Who am I being? If you want to be somebody who gets up early, then be somebody who gets up early. We're not trying to get up early. There's no try. It's not like, oh, maybe tomorrow I'll try to get up early. It's like, tomorrow I'm going to get up early because if I don't, I feel off in my entire day. I get up early because I need that time to myself. I understand that. Sometimes I would rather sleep in, but if I sleep in, then my whole day feels off. I slept in today because my husband was off. I usually get up when he goes to work. and I let myself sleep, and I also had a major headache. But we basically got up, got my daughter out the door, rushed to school, and I didn't have my time to think about the day. Or that's my best content planning time in the day too, where I'm like, before I look at anything else, before I see the world, it's just like, this is what I want to share. And so in bed, I'll usually like on my Notion, I'll write my little content things that I'm going to plan for the day. And I didn't have time to do that. I get back and then everything feels off. I get up early because I want to avoid that, right? I'm not trying to do it. I just do it. And so I think it's not even an important part. It's like the most important part of creating these new habits to be that version of yourself, to manifest that life. You have to see yourself as the person who already does that.
Mhm. Total side segue from that here. So being a mom, knowing what you know now, are there any tools or exercises, or I guess even just in terms of parenting around your child that you embody now?
Yeah, it's so hard because it's kind of like sometimes the do what I say and not what I do type thing, right? Because honestly, we pick up everything. When we're in the ages of 0 to 7, it's only subconscious learning. So that's how kids learn to walk so fast. If they were in their conscious mind, they would never take a step because there would be fear of falling. Oh my gosh, if I took a step, what if I fall? What if I hurt myself? What if people make fun of me for the way that I'm walking, right? That would never happen. So we only are in our subconscious learning stage at that point where we just adapt to everything that we're being told. But knowing that as a parent, sometimes it's so hard because I'm a human. I have a nervous system. Sometimes it's dysregulated, and it's hard because you'll say something or you'll have a tone or you'll do something or you'll listen to your spouse say something and you're like, ah, they're going to take this subconscious belief and it's going to be all our fault when they're older. But I think just being an awareness of knowing that they're literally sponges. I know people say that, but literally every single thing that you're telling your child, whether it's something you're physically telling your child or just something they're seeing you do, they're absorbing it and they're taking that, internalizing it, and forming a belief about it, right? It's not just like, okay, I heard that and like it's going in my mind. It's forming a belief inside themselves. So if you're somebody who's like, oh, we don't have money for that right now. Well, they're going to be like, we don't have money. Okay, I have no money. It's hard for us to make money and then develop all these money beliefs. Whereas if you're like, right now, that's not a priority in our budget, that's a whole different thing, right? So it's kind of like trying to be mindful of the words that we use in the way that we explain things because it can be true that you don't have the money right now and you want to share that, but there's a difference in the way that we say it so that when it's internalized, it goes, okay, it's just not a priority right now. Because when they grow up, they'll be like, that's not a priority right now. Not, oh, I don't have the money, or there's not enough money to go around, or it's so hard to make money, right? There's a different way of trying to, and I say trying because I'm not perfect and I'm not on 100% of my game there either.
We're all human beings, right? We can try our best and set the intentions for what we want, but life is still going to hit us. And sometimes children's noise level rattles you. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes children's
Oh,
noise level rattles you, especially
the
when prepping
worst.
dinner for some reason. But
Yes.
yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that because I have little ones and I'm like, huh, when you were talking earlier, I was like, oh, I'm doing things right now that are damaging my children and their future belief systems when they see me get flustered or they see me not in my best. But so thanks for sharing that. And I
Yeah,
would
of
love
course.
for you to share. You've got your own podcast, you've got a fun little thing called Velocity. So please share where listeners can reach out and catch more of your goodness.
Yeah, so my podcast is called That Girl. So it's all about really stepping into the version of us who is ready to be seen, who wants to be heard and valued for being your most authentic self. And I know authentic is such a buzzword, but it's like truly discovering like who you are underneath all of the conditioning, right? If you were in the middle of a flower and you pulled back all the petals, who are you underneath? Because all of those things, and petals makes it sound really nice. Limiting beliefs are not nice, like almost like an onion, right? You're peeling back these layers, but then picturing it like a flower once you get to kind of like bloom, it's like they're all peeled back. And that's the most you version of you when you get to discover that. And then feeling worthy and deserving of being seen and being heard and stepping into that. And it's all about this whole body approach of how do we step into our most well selves because The truth is, like, nobody is picturing themselves as their next level self or in the life they want to manifest as a slob eating bonbons on the couch, right? Like, nobody is doing that. Whether you're doing that or not, I know that it's not the way that you picture your future self. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that. But if you're manifesting your most well self and this visual, like, you're trying to visualize the life of this future self, I would bet money that that's not the future version you're trying to manifest. And so it's getting into, this is my best self. This is how I show up every day. This is how I take care of my skin. This is how I treat my body. This is how I feel the most confident showing up and having the appearance. And I don't want to say looks are everything, but looks do matter. And how you present yourself matters, because that's the energy that you're giving off in order to receive it back, right? That's, I think, the biggest thing about that is, like, it's not like, oh, your looks matter. It's your specific looks too, not chasing some standard of what society tells you you have to look like. But again, really being, this is how I feel the best in my body. This is, wearing my hair like this makes me feel my most confident. Showing up with glowing skin, I feel so good right now. And it's that energy that you put out, and that law of attraction, when we're bringing it back into us, being on that frequency, rather than being like, oh, I feel kind of crappy today. And then you're trying to create content, but you don't even feel good about yourself. And somebody just told me I had eyebrow blindness on TikTok the other day. And I was like, wow, it's wild that you think that you can just tell me that. I love my eyebrows, but thanks. Like, right?
Wow.
The old me would have been very upset about that, though. The old me would have been like, oh my gosh, I put myself out there and somebody said something mean to me. And now I'm just like, wow, it's wild that you think that you can tell people that. That's crazy. Anyways, so that girl, that's what we talk about, all the things of being that girl. And it's on Apple and Spotify. And then Velocity, yes, it's a subscription where I offer tools that allow you to access your subconscious mind. So swish pattern technique, the neural energetic encoding, where we go back in our timeline to release root causes. There's hypnosis, subliminals, a bunch of other cool techniques. And I send them out every Tuesday and Thursday. So it's 2 techniques a week, 2 tools, and it's only $11. So it's such a cool way for people to experience what it's like to work at the subconscious level without having to make like a big commitment or to really take any risk. Because I know it's weird. It can feel unbelievable. What do you mean? You can go back to a past life, especially if you're somebody who doesn't believe in that. You're like, no. So it's a really cool way to introduce yourself to the techniques without having to get over the hump of what if it doesn't work.
I love that. And I feel like the listeners of this podcast are all about looking through the lens of possibility, just the curiosity of, oh, I never thought about this before in this way. What does that look like? So I love having guests like you on the show that are just sharing different outlets that we may have never even known we had access to, right? So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Meagan. I absolutely loved our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me.